Hi guys, welcome back to Building the Bar. I'm your co-host Fatima.
And I'm Maya.
And today we're joined with a very special guest, Miss Amy Williams.
Hello.
Hi Amy, thank you so much for being here and taking the time out of your day. This really means a lot.
Yeah, thank you for having me. I'm happy to be here.
Thank you. So we'll just go ahead and get started. So Miss Amy, could you please go ahead and introduce yourself and just tell us a little bit about what you do?
Yeah, so I'm Amy Williams. I'm an attorney. I graduated from Santa Clara University School of Law and started working for a workers' compensation defense firm where I stayed for several years before coming over to where I do now. I work for the state. I'm an attorney in the Office of the Director of Department of Industrial Relations, which is a mouthful. So I primarily still do workers' compensation law, but I do also do a few other practice areas like privacy and legislation. And my practice of workers' comp now looks a little bit different than it did at practicing through a private firm versus the state, but I really love it, and hopefully I will be here for the remainder of my career.
That's great to hear. And then I also wanted to follow up. Could you explain what workers' comp is? Just like a little brief overview for viewers that may not know.
Sure. Yeah, workers' compensation law, where the attorneys come in. So a workers' comp claim starts when there's an injury at work or an alleged injury at work occurs and the injured worker seeks employment benefits as compensation for that injury. And a lot of times that claim can be resolved directly between the injured worker and the insurance company or the employer. But if it becomes contested or litigated, then they bring in the attorneys, and that's where I come in. So it's just litigating kind of who gets benefits and how much.
Okay, cool. Perfect. Thank you.
And when did you first realize that you wanted to go into law? Is this something you always had figured out? You figured out later?
Yes, I wanted to go into law ever since high school, but I kind of gave up on it until after college.
Okay, and then could I ask, why did you kind of give up on it?
Yeah, that's a very good question. I'm not even quite sure, other than I think I thought it would be too hard. I remember telling somebody about that once, that I think it was actually my optometrist was asking me about it. And I think, I wasn't sure if it was something that I was going to be able to dedicate as much effort as I would require to.
Yeah.
So for a while, I just kind of went a different route and then found my way back to it.
Oh, totally. And then to follow up on that, what did your path from school to your current career look like?
Yeah, a windy one. It started in high school. I wanted to be an attorney. I always saw myself either in a big firm or as a prosecutor.
Yeah.
Kind of gave it up in college. I majored in history. And then after undergrad, I taught for a while. I taught first grade, actually.
That's cool.
Yeah. And then I realized that if I wanted to do really anything with a history degree, I would need a master's. So I went back to San Francisco State and got my master's in political science. After that, I didn't really do much with that either. I worked as an administrative assistant for several years and then returned to my law school path.
Okay, and then I was also wanting to ask, was there a particular experience or just a person or moment that shaped the direction that you took?
Yeah, kind of. I was a little older by that point. I was in my late 20s and just kind of realized I can either continue the corporate road here, build my way up from being an admin assistant up, or, if this is the time, I kind of got to make the decision now.
Yeah, totally.
So I figured I would apply and I would let it be decided based on whether I got in, and I did.
That's good. That's
great.
And did you always picture yourself doing the type of work that you do now, or was this just kind of a random decision?
Yeah, no, I did not. I didn't even know that workers' comp law was a thing when I was in law school. No, I wanted to be a prosecutor pretty much throughout law school, and then I got an internship. I can talk about a little bit later, but I got an internship at the Superior Court in San Jose, and just kind of some of the subject matter of the cases is just really heavy, and I didn't really know a lot of things involving children and things that are really hard to deal with on a daily basis. So I wasn't sure I wanted to do that anymore. And then workers' comp came around when I was looking for a job after graduating. That's what I interviewed with, and I thought, I've never heard of a workers' comp firm before.
Yeah, try something new.
Yeah, why not? And they hired me, and I liked it, so I stayed.
That's great. Yeah. And then so you've stayed at your first job.
No, this is my second job.
Oh, your second job. I see. Okay.
Yes.
And now I want to go into a little bit more about law school. So did law school look different than what you had expected? Because people kind of have an expectation going in, and did your expectations match what law school was actually like?
Yes and no. I think a lot of people, myself included, tend to view it as sort of like, if you watch something like Legally Blonde, you have that kind of hard lined, it's really hard and tough and competitive.
Yeah.
I don't know if it was just Santa Clara. Maybe some programs are different, but for me, I did not experience that. I did not experience the cutthroat. You have to be one of the top 10% law students to
That's
get
very
anywhere.
refreshing to hear.
Yeah.
People kind of get nervous when
And they say these like
Totally.
big name colleges and all that.
Yeah.
And then I also wanted to follow up the college or law school that you went to. Sorry, was it accredited or non-accredited?
Accredited.
Okay.
Yes.
Could you explain that for viewers as well?
Yeah, I think it has to do with what courses are offered and how many credits you have to take. And there's like some core courses, contracts towards criminal law, criminal procedure, civil procedure, and possibly some others that you have to take in order to kind of get your core legal curriculum. And I think that if you're not accredited, you don't have to do that.
Okay.
And so it's kind of comes from a place of, once you graduate, what kind of training do you have? Do you have the kind of lawyer training that everybody else you're going to be dealing with has, or do you have something that might be less or different? And so I would recommend going to an accredited school.
So I wanted to follow up with that. So is the accreditation title something that's important, and is it something that students should be looking into when picking their law school?
Yes, absolutely.
Okay.
It will definitely impact what kind of jobs you can get when you come out. But I will say, where you lie on the accreditation ranking isn't that important.
Okay.
That's good to know. Because
That's really good to know. Yeah, I bet a lot of our viewers also may not know that. So
and on that note too, the accreditations actually, it changes so often anyway. Like when I started, Santa Clara was much higher than it is now. I haven't checked it recently. It might be going back up again. But the point being, it fluctuates, so it's not really that important to be like number one, just as long as you have that ABA accreditation.
So the big names don't really matter. It's more so just the accreditation.
Yeah,
that's good to know.
I mean, there's like a little bit. Some places you might apply to care a little bit more about.
it varies.
To Stanford or something big like that. But
It's good
Okay,
to know.
and then I wanted to go back, since earlier I asked you about like a particular experience, person or moment that shaped your career. I wanted to ask, were there any setbacks or moments where you questioned whether this was the right path, or what am I even doing, you know?
Yeah, actually, no. And I'm probably,
Okay.
probably not that common of an answer. But I think I knew that's what I wanted to do. And since it was working out, and my experience at Santa Clara was so good, it was definitely hard, don't get me wrong.
Yeah, of course.
But I don't think I ever felt like, is this the right path for me? I did within law, like not wanting to be a prosecutor anymore or work in criminal court. But in terms of becoming a lawyer, I think I always knew it was where I was supposed to be.
Yeah, it's good. Yeah, it's great to hear.
Yeah.
And then what helped you the most when preparing to enter the legal profession?
Yeah.
Whether that can be your support system, people around you, or anything else that you have in mind.
I think just making as many connections as you can during law school.
Yeah.
I got involved with some clubs, and I did moot court.
Okay.
2 times. They had a 1L competition, which I did. And then they had, after that was kind of more of a competitive, you have like more competitions in that club, and it's a semester long thing. Cool. Anyway, I'm diverging a little bit, but so just like making as many contacts, talking to people.
Yeah.
But even so, I will say that there is a definite feeling once you get out and start practicing of like, okay, this is a lot different than law school, even if you try to plan for that.
Yeah.
It's just sort of like the things that you learn in law school versus what skills you need to practice are a little bit different, shall we say.
And how early on would you say students should get started with building those connections and finding those internships? And how important is that? Because there's some people who like to get started later on in life, and are they kind of at a loss because they chose to wait longer?
Not necessarily. I think a lot of it will depend on what kinds of connections you make, what kind of internships you have, what the transferable skills will be, I think is the key part. So if you start like before law school, that's great. And it might help you might learn more of like subject matter. If you work for like a criminal defense attorney, you're going to learn a lot of criminal law. And then like as you go through law school, I think it's more important, or at least more, maybe not more important, but more fruitful, because you might make like more connections with attorneys closer to the point in life where you can use those connections.
For sure.
Yeah.
And then I also wanted to dive more into your specific career and just the reality of the legal work. What does a typical day in your work look like?
Yeah. So I will start by going in and answering some emails and phone calls and boring stuff like that.
Gotta get those out of the way.
Yeah. And then I have right now designated days of the week where I'm in court. So if it's a court day, I'll start around 8:30, do some hearings that lasts a few hours. Then I'll do some more clerical stuff in between. And then there's an afternoon calendar too. Starts at 1:30, and that can take a few more hours. And then my other days I spend doing case review, initial file review, working the case up to see kind of what the ratings are, the permanent disability, talking to other attorneys, talking to I will say my client. They're not technically my client technically is the director of industrial relations, but I worked with the claims adjusters for my files. So talking with them. And then, occasionally I'll do a deposition of the applicant or of doctors. So that's interesting too. And conducting discovery.
That's cool. Okay. And then what part of your job do you find the most rewarding?
I think for me, I really enjoy litigating. I like being in court. I wouldn't want to do it every day, all day, every day. So that for me is also one of the reasons I love my current position, because I only have a few days a week that I'm in court. And so I really like litigating, and I also really like when I'm able to help people get benefits.
Yeah. And I know you had mentioned that you used to work for a private firm and now the state. Could you go over kind of the difference between those two and just your overall experience with both?
Yes. The biggest difference I would say is hours. If you're with a private firm, and the one that I was at had a particularly high billing requirement. But yes, you do have a billing quota that you have to meet every month, and some are higher, some are lower. That's the main difference, but also kind of what I was doing was different. Like when I was at the private firm, I was working more on every step of discovery, taking the applicant's depositions, figuring out what happened in the injury, maybe conducting some side investigations, seeing that whole case through from start to finish. And now there's a couple of different kinds of funds through the state that will help injured workers get additional compensation above what they got from their original workers' compensation claim. And so my job is to filter through who qualifies for those. So I do a little bit of the discovery and workers' compy stuff, but it's more, there's a different set of rules that I look at.
Good to know.
Yeah.
And what skills would you say matter the most in law beyond just knowing the law, and what would be helpful?
People skills.
Okay.
You don't have to be like outgoing. I'm not. I'm kind of shy. But you have to know how to deal with people, and certainly you'll deal with some difficult people, and the nice ones stand out, and that's always fun.
Yeah.
But you have to know that'll help you with like settlement negotiations. And if you have to speak with some of these people are not represented and they don't really understand the law and what's going on. And you have to be able to explain to them what's happening with their case in a way that's professional yet kind of kind and on their level. Yeah.
And then I want to go back, just kind of add on to what Maya said, just your overall advice for students. And I also wanted to ask about your internships. How important are internships, networking, the connections and all that? And what advice do you have for students to push themselves out there? A lot of students like hold themselves back because they're nervous or like rejection, but what do you have to say to that? What advice do you have?
I would say it's not make or break it, but it is important, and I would definitely try. Definitely join. Once you get into law school, join as many things as you can. Go to mixers, speak with attorneys and judges. You just never know what connections are going to lead to something and what aren't.
Exactly.
Get your name out there, kind of talk to, like when you get to your law school or even as a potential law student, see kind of what opportunities are available for students through the school. A lot of them have clinics that you can do, which are, you just kind of get to practice underneath a practicing attorney. And so you can kind of show off what you can do. So I would say join as many clubs as you have time for. Don't sacrifice your study time, but as many as you can comfortably do. And definitely just kind of try to keep getting your name out there.
And then what mistakes do you think aspiring lawyers are typically making now?
That's a tough question. I'm not sure. I would say rather than a specific mistake that I can think of, I would say just some general practice pointers are to make sure that you are kind of balancing your self-care as well as your
Yeah.
school, because that's a
Mhm.
big trap that you can fall into,
Yeah.
and you can experience burnout really quickly.
Yeah, you're focusing on one thing and like neglecting other aspects. Yeah.
Yes, and that kind of leads me into, you will maybe have a little less time for your friends and family, like
Yeah,
than
for
usual,
sure.
and they should understand that too. But don't completely withdraw, and
Mhm.
definitely, if you feel like you need support or help, there are resources through every
Mhm.
school. Go get help. Yeah.
And as far as that whole burnout aspect, I want to kind of go to LSAT prep and the studying for that. And how early on should students be studying for? And how much of a workload would you expect throughout law school, just with overall assignments and homeworks to give our viewers an idea?
Sure. For the LSAT part first, I think you don't need to take it until you're ready to start applying. I think you can check me on that. But I think because what I remember from mine is when you're taking it, you fill out which schools you want your scores to be sent to,
Mhm.
and they'll send it out. So for studying for that, you can kind of get started whenever you want. I think I did several months. I don't know if that's typical or not. It worked for me.
Mhm.
But I was doing that for a good portion of each day for a couple of months. I think I got one of those prep books and just
Okay.
took
Yeah.
practice test after practice test
Mhm.
after practice test until I was passing them consistently. And then to the second part of your question about law school, yeah, so a lot.
Yeah.
It's going to be a lot. It's a lot of it is just reading cases, and certain
Yeah.
classes will assign you way more pages to read than you have time for, and you kind of have to learn how to make that work. But yes, be prepared for a pretty heavy load.
And then,
Yeah.
sorry, I don't know if this was already answered, but how early on did you start for LSAT prep?
About 2 months, I think, before I took the test.
2 months?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So if you were to give advice for students who want to pursue a career in law but don't have the connections to lawyers or any personal connections in their family, what is the best way for them to gain that connection?
So that was me, actually. And yes, my advice would just be, as soon as you do get in, seek out any clubs that you can start. You can do like cold calls or cold emails to firms to see if they need any law clerks or assistants or anything.
Mhm.
So if you're someone who's interested in that, that might not lead you to as many opportunities as getting involved through your school.
Yeah.
But definitely, just as much as you can, talking to professors and attorneys, which most of your professors are going to be attorneys.
Yeah.
And yeah, just kind of exposing yourself. As soon as you get in, just kind of dive in.
So school's definitely like the place to start where the resources are. And a lot of students don't even know like what resources they have on campus. So definitely if you're interested in pursuing a career in law, just check the resources that your school has to offer around you.
Yes.
It's very refreshing to see that you are also one of those people who didn't have those resources, which gives us hope that it is possible.
Oh,
it's
absolutely.
not hard.
Absolutely.
If you could give your younger self one piece of advice, what would it be?
Enjoy the ride. Yeah, it's really easy to get kind of caught up in all of the stress that's going on and what's happening, and you kind of can miss out on, because I would say that like in undergrad, there's the school aspect, and then there's the aspect of like the more social aspect, and there's like being in college, and I think that you can have that too in law school, and you just kind of have to remind yourself to let that in a little bit. And I think it's a pretty special part of the experience. So.
That's a great reminder, because I feel like that's something that students usually lose sight of, especially just being all caught up in their schoolwork. So it's a good piece of advice.
Yeah, it's always good to be reminded that you can have both aspects.
Yeah.
Totally.
And then is there anything about your journey or just the legal profession that you think we should have asked you today but we didn't, or anything that you want to share with our viewers?
I would just want to say, if you're interested in law, congratulations, and we're glad to have anybody else in the field. Nobody out there should feel like you can't do it or there are barriers for you, no matter what your situation, no matter what your background, your financial situation. You can do it. You can make it happen, and there are resources out there to help you. So don't give up.
Yeah. And what is one thing you hope that students take away from your specific story?
That there is a specific kind of law for everybody, and you might not know what that is when you're interested in law school or when you're even in law school. Or even you might even start practicing in a different field and then find it later. But Yeah.
I myself even feel like I already learned like so much more
Yeah.
about
Oh, I'm so
workers'
glad.
comp today. Yeah.
That's something you don't hear about often.
No,
There's
not
a
at
lot
all.
of different careers I feel like that you don't really hear unless you know someone that's already in the career. So
Totally.
it's pretty cool.
Yeah.
Well, thank you so much for
You're welcome.
being
Thank you
with
for
us
having
today.
me.
It's very insightful. And you have anything else?
I think that's it.
Thank you guys so much for watching. We hope each and every one of you took something away from this.
Stay tuned for our next episode on Building the Bar.
Let's build the bar together.